Welcome to This Explainer. If you've ever spent a weekend just grinding away at a crowded event, kind of staring at those top vendors and wondering, how on earth do they pull in those massive numbers? Well, you're definitely in the right place. Today, we're going to break down the exact blueprint for transforming a chaotic, everyday craft booth into a high-capacity, $20,000 retail machine. Let's get right into it. We'll be breaking this massive goal down into 5 distinct, really systematic parts. We'll look at the initial paradigm shift you need, how to start with the actual math, designing for customer flow, setting up your operations and teamwork, and finally, mapping out your capability roadmap.
All right, kicking things off with part one, the paradigm shift. To hit a record-breaking weekend, we first have to completely shatter a pretty common misconception about how event sales actually work.
And this comparison right here hits the nail on the head. You've got to stop treating your space like an amateur craft table, where you just cram everything in and cross your fingers. Instead, we're engineering a temporary store, one designed purely for throughput and systematic replenishment. You're not just putting stuff on a table, you're building a pop-up retail machine built to attract, convert, and serve. Moving on to part 2, start with the math. Before you even think about 3D printing or crafting a single new product, we need to run a strict reality check on your operating requirements. When you see a massive goal like $20,000, it is so easy to fall into a trap. The rookie mistake is thinking, okay, I just need to bring $20,000 worth of inventory. But guys, that mindset, it just leads to overflowing tables, super chaotic displays, and honestly, a wildly stressful weekend.
The real crucial point here is completely math-based. Think about it. If your average ticket is $25, hitting 20 grand means you need 800 separate transactions. So you have to ask yourself a hard question. Can your physical booth setup actually process 800 people in a single weekend? It's all about transaction speed and capacity, not just how many boxes you can stuff in your van.
So to avoid totally panicking, we're going to segment that huge number into a workable revenue model using multiple engines. You absolutely cannot rely on one hero product. You want to balance it out. We're talking maybe 6 grand in quick impulse buys, 8 grand in your core mid-tier gifts, 4 grand in those premium statement pieces, and then 2 grand in interactive add-ons like a mystery machine or something fun. Doing this turns a big, vague goal into strict, manageable production requirements.
But here's the kicker. All that beautiful inventory means absolutely nothing if you hit a brick wall at the register. Let's look at checkout capacity. It's basically 60 divided by your average transaction time in minutes. So if it takes 2.5 minutes per person from decision to bagging, a single station can only handle 24 transactions an hour. If your goal mathematically requires 40 transactions an hour, well, there's just no way around it. You have to upgrade your speed or add another checkout station.
Okay, part 3, design for customer flow. We've got the math down, we know the potential bottlenecks, so let's step into the physical space and see how you build an environment that effortlessly handles all that traffic. Just imagine walking into the booth right now. You aren't just staring at a random catalog of items. You're being expertly guided through specific zones. Right off the bat, you're hooked by a visual stop zone. Then, you're browsing this highly tactile discovery zone. From there, you drift into themed story zones, maybe a whole section for cute horror or fantasy stuff. You get to admire a really nicely spaced out premium zone, and then smoothly exit through a lightning-fast checkout zone without ever bumping into the flow of incoming shoppers. Getting rid of dead ends and bottlenecks is absolutely crucial. What's really fascinating here is mapping the exact customer buying journey. It really proves that your layout's main job is maximum productive flow, not just packing in as much stuff as possible. Every single step, from noticing that first visual hook to entering, touching a product, choosing it, and paying, takes physical space. If your interactive items are clogging the entrance, or if your team is standing right in the main pathway, the flow breaks instantly. And when flow breaks, sales drop. A huge part of managing that flow comes down to visual density, or what we call a perceived value ladder. You want to keep those cheaper discovery items super abundant. Digging through them is part of the fun. But as the price goes up, you have to give your high-ticket premium items some breathing room. Displaying fewer units creates a sense of rarity and FOMO. If you just stack your premium pieces up like bulk toilet paper, they lose all their perceived value, and suddenly your booth just feels like a storage closet. That brings us to part 4, operations and teamwork. We've engineered the math, we've set up the physical space, but who is actually running this whole machine? Because reaching this level of volume, it's an absolute team sport. During peak hours, every single operational role has to be owned by someone. You need a floor lead who is watching traffic and putting out fires. You need your sales staff genuinely engaging with people and telling stories. You need dedicated checkout staff for those lightning-fast transactions. And crucially, you need a replenishment runner. Having a dedicated runner grabbing backstock means your sales team never, ever has to abandon a paying customer just to frantically dig through boxes.
This separation of space is vital. Your front tables, those are strictly for selling and inspiring. Meanwhile, your dense, super organized backstock is hidden behind the scenes, and that is what actually keeps the machine running. Your runner is pulling from these dense refill packs based on specific triggers, like maybe they refill the minute a display drops below 40%. That way your booth never looks picked over or sad, even after a massive first-hour rush.
All right, the final piece of the puzzle, part 5, the capability roadmap. We understand the system's anatomy, but now we need a timeline to actually scale up to this massive milestone safely, without relying on emergency all-nighters or just plain luck.
Look, a record weekend just cannot be produced the week prior. If you're 3D printing or crafting, you have to calculate machine hours and materials way in advance. We work backward chronologically. You test your concepts at 90 days out, start deep production at 60 days, and do a full physical booth rehearsal at 30 days. By day 14, you have to stop all the shiny new experiments. That final week before the event is purely for staging your load order, not building a business from scratch.
And here's the absolute secret to scaling. Do not aim directly at that final target right away. You have to pass through capability gates. Build up your capability levels over time, from a $1,000 event to $2,500 to $5,000 and so on. Treat those smaller events as capability laboratories. You have to prove your booth can handle the next financial tier before you try to jump to 20 grand. Can you run 2 checkout stations without errors? Can you raise your average ticket from $24 to $30? You gotta prove it at these smaller gates first. Throughout all these test events, you absolutely must build a live scoreboard to track the metrics that matter. Don't just obsess over total profit. Diagnose your bottlenecks. Are transactions taking too long? Is the average ticket too low? Are your top sellers stocking out way too early? By tracking this data, you learn exactly where the system is breaking so you can fix it before the main event. Your last event should literally teach you how to build the next one. This quote really summarizes the entire explainer for me. A $20,000 weekend is not an inventory goal. It is a system capacity goal. It's not about hoarding a giant mountain of stuff. It's entirely about engineering your customer flow, your assortment, your staffing, and your checkout systems so they all work together to sustain high-velocity sales. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought as you start prepping for your next big event. Look at your setup right now and ask yourself, are you still just packing boxes and hoping for the best, or are you finally ready to build a retail machine? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. Go take these blueprints and engineer your very own record-breaking weekend. You've got this.